Hello, EDL 695. This is Adam Hall, and I am recording this video for the summary section of the mentoring folder that we've been working on over the last couple weeks in class. Uh, so over the next 10 minutes or so, I'd like to highlight what I've learned about mentoring, my more kind of full understanding of mentoring as a practice, and some things that I have been reflecting upon over the last few weeks about my mentor and menteeing experiences and how I honestly wish I would have done some of this reading and understanding before I got that started. So I saw this really as a building blocks opportunity to discuss mentoring. So we'll jump right in. So really the overview that I want to talk through fairly quickly and to kind of get into the mentoring and some considerations that I've been thinking quite a bit about over the last 2 weeks is really to cover what is a bit of the history that I found very insightful and helpful in framing this, the emerging thoughts that have happened over the last few decades, the importance of the relationship that exists between mentor and mentee, the consensus regarding mentoring versus just the sheer agreement that mentoring is this X finite thing that we put in this box versus the realities that it's much more of a collaboration in a relationship. And then the importance of self-reflection by both mentor and mentee in these didactic relationships. I'll then move into some personal reflections that I've been considering over the last little bit about what I've learned and how I hope to apply it, as well as how I hope to learn from my previous experiences. Some overarching conclusions, and then, of course, the works that I've cited. One of them being here at the bottom, the Garvey-Stokes Megasyntax, as well as some other articles that we were asked to read over the last few weeks. So the history, I think, is really fascinating. The early indirect links to mentoring being with Plato and Socrates, the connection with Aristotle, and really the emerging kind of relationship between these individuals who have such fame and notoriety in our current history that they helped guide each other in some way. They were thinkers and they were creators and designers, but they also were guiders of their kind of followers and the individuals who they challenged the way in which we think about the world in which we live in nowadays. The next kind of more direct links to mentoring is actually an area that I was even more interested in, really because of Homer's work on this idea of being an advisor of thought. That to me really resonates throughout this entire presentation, as well as I was reading through the material. That is a core component of what I perceive to be effective mentoring. That it's an individual who's really guiding someone, not necessarily making them do or say or act in certain ways, but really just giving them advice and helping to guide them in a certain direction. And then the emerging 18th century writers of all these different subcomponents of what is a healthy mentor, what is a success, what is the point and the expectation of mentor, and all these other pieces that we'll get into in this slide, actually. So these emerging thoughts through the 18th and 19th centuries, and even now into the 20th century, really focus on several of these components. And there's a number that Garvey et al. Really highlight in the text, but these are the ones that were most impactful while I was reading. And this idea of developing an individual's potential, this to me was not only from the mentor to mentee, but also this kind of reflective self-development of the mentor in this process, providing purpose and direction for folks who may be in need of it, or they can fall back to this person when they're having struggles. Somebody who's a role model, who's actually going to model behaviors, beliefs, values, thoughts to be considered by the mentee throughout their relationship. This idea of self-knowledge to enhance knowledge, I found this really interesting, that the self-realizations that mentors are having to help enhance the knowledge of their mentee, to inspire, to be a confidant, to basically build confidence within the relationship and within the mentee. The self-awareness of both participants, of where they're at, if this is healthy or unhealthy, if they're helpful or hurtful, and then the realities that come with those kind of awarenesses. Encouraging independence, so there's not this idea of this relationship as a codependent relationship, that one is really encouraging the other to be creative, guide them in positive directions. That they're also empathetic to the realities of both sides of this. So each individual is empathetic to the needs and the realities that somebody is struggling with or successful with, and supporting them appropriately. And then lastly, I think, and this is the cyclical nature of the didactic relationship that I'll get into in a second, but it's this idea of developing and encouraging the reflection, self-reflection and the dyad reflection. So these to me were some of the core components that have emerged over the last 200 years when it comes to the dialogue around mentoring, and for me that really speak to what a great and supportive mentor can look like. Moving forward again, I think we look at the importance of the relationship. Symbols dyad, this is really this commitment between two individuals. It doesn't always have to be a dyad or didactic relationship, but I think for the commitment to what this really looks like, that is the best strategy that is utilized currently in the mentor-mentee systems. This idea of commitment to growth from the mentor to mentee, but also in reverse there. Shared success, really appreciating and acknowledging the successes that both sides are having within the dyad, but also external to it, again, reinforcing and creating that independence. And acknowledging that this is an intimate relationship, not necessarily a romantically intimate relationship, but something that you are going to dedicate and that individuals through this process are going to dedicate and commit to on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And then strengthening through those shared experiences, spending time, committing, finding success in each one's individual successes to reinforce and grow that relationship. And then I think where we're at collectively with the beauty of mentoring really is that is a consensus. That there are not 100% you must have these criteria to be a good mentor, but there's a general consensus over these 6 core values that are emerging. And there's really more than these 6, but these are the 6 that I found and through reading the Garvey et al. Text really highlighted that mentoring is a process. It's about self-development. Often it's about skill building and reality checking. It's about developing personal values and values that could hopefully improve the life of each individual within the dyad. Increasing the capacity of communication, the effectiveness of communication, as well as it is a teaching facilitation and being a part of the facilitation of learning, growth, and advising. So all of these to me are really key, again, key importance that are now being assessed more and more in our current culture and our current research, that I think if we start losing any of these components, we are going to be doing very great deals of damage to what successful mentoring looks like. But also saying that this is not an exhaustive list. There can be more to this. Whatever that relationship or that dyad needs for it to be successful, helpful, and really healthy for both parties. So the last piece that I want to move into is really kind of taking all of what I've learned over the last few weeks and doing some self-reflection. And 2 experiences that really come to mind are my mentoring experience of UNCW students who are interested in student affairs practice, and the mentee experience that I've had working with a mentor at UNCW who recently departed, went to a different institution. And I was really struck by the Bozeman and Feeney text because of the reality of they're a bit skeptical about this is just an organic process. There really needs to be some structure and there needs to be some guidance, maybe even some multi-tiered guidance throughout these experiences. And so my mentoring experience at UNCW, working with young people who are juniors and seniors who see themselves moving into the Division of Student Affairs at a university or going into a higher education program, that has been a real treat for me to really dive in with students and look at what they want, what their desires are, what their expectations and ambitions, and doing some reality checking and supporting them, but also just providing an ear for when they're frustrated or anxious, or they're waiting patiently or they're waiting anxiously for that phone call or that message back from the school or job. I think that being an advisor to them and advising them on what would be helpful or harmful is really beneficial to everything that's kind of going on in their experience. And one thing that I reflected on quite a bit is that I really look at the Homer reality of advisor of thought, and asking that student some really critical questions around their development and what they want to get out of these experiences, who they want to be, and how student affairs and how how higher education really plays into that. And so I feel like I've had great mentees and I've been a mentor that provides for my mentees. But I also feel like I missed a lot of great opportunities because I wasn't quite abreast of some different ideas or expectations that I could be providing for the student that I was working with. Whether it be some specific role modeling that I could be more intentional about, or even just specifically cutting out time from either of our schedules and doing something directed about our mentor-mentee relationship, spending time together, having coffee, just enjoying each other's company to really get to know this person on an individual level, as well as guiding them through a process. The second part of, and I wish I would have been a better mentee to ask the questions that I really wanted answers to, or to even consider the questions I need answers to. As a mentee of a previous director who I had great respect for and still do, but we realized that as her relationship ended at the campus, it was appropriate for me and her to separate our mentor-mentee relationship because of the distance, because of changing life circumstances for her, and letting her start anew. We agreed to really let that happen and let that foster. So I think it's really interesting as we start to grow and foster in our individual mentee selves that we've got to acknowledge that didactic relationship of our mentor. And I didn't really appreciate some of the realities that she had been committing to me until I got into some of the texts, specifically the Garvey et al. Text. So I think those two experiences for me, both as mentor and mentee, were very, very enlightening. But my hope is that as I become a mentee to someone else in the future, and that I begin to do the mentoring process again this spring, that I will be even a more effective practitioner of mentoring through the practice, through the anticipation that I have, but also the excitement that comes along with mentoring a young person. And so really the last bit of considerations and conclusions that I'd really like to touch on are just the realities of it's not one individualized growth point that we're looking for as a mentor and mentee. I think that is a much more enlightening view over, say, the coaching literature, where there's usually a goal involved, whether it's a winning of a sports event or there's a promotion that you're shooting for, something on those lines. The mentor mentee is not always that kind of succinct. It is much more organic, but there are guiding principles and guiding practices. I do appreciate that in mentoring, there really is a personal and a professional component that tends to emerge. I tend to lean towards more the professional when I work with my mentees, but I feel like I need to open up and grow more with the personal as well, and challenge and support them in their personal decisions as well as their professional ones. I'm always interested. I think there could be a more guided educational, more guided and enlightening educational process for a mentor and a mentee on a campus environment. I will absolutely be sharing this material with a future mentor or mentee. So I would love for us to talk through some of these ideas together. What did you connect with in, say, chapter 1 and 2 about mentoring and coaching? And what are some things that you are starting to think about you might need? The mentor truly as a guide and a teacher, I think, is a really nice way of framing this, is that it's not succinctly a guide or a teacher, but it's a little bit of both, and acting as such in the future is what I hope to do for young people. I always think we need to be doing more self-reflection, a self-reflection after every meeting with the student or meeting with our mentor, to really think through, what did this mean for me? How do I grow from this? And really, how do I improve? And if there's not an improvement there, there's something lacking, going back and kind of assessing that with that dyad. And then lastly, I'm really trying to get more into and understand the idea of a multi-tiered mentoring system. So you've got two different sets of dyads with one mentor who is also a mentee, and letting that whole system kind of help and support itself as it grows and changes and shifts and all that. And so I think these 6 points really are things that I took away from this chapter, as well as some things I hope to put into place in the next few years. And lastly, my bibliography. So the book and its chapters, as well as the Bozeman and Feeney article, were fantastic for this section. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me back or drop a note into the YouTube video or even on the Blackboard site. So I thank you all so much. Again, my name is Adam Hall, and I am a student in EDL 695 at UNC Wilmington in the spring semester 2017. Hope you have a great night.